Oh man, welcome back to the Blueprints of Success interview series, providing unique blueprints, tactical knowledge, best practices to navigate the critical points in the football ecosystem so athletes and parents can prepare a plan to a career path that any athlete can bank on. So we all know that the journey to success is never truly a straight line. There's pivots, there's missteps, there's, failures, there's wins, there's losses, whatever that case may be. But the goal of Bluechip Academy is to provide, to highlight former players' unique journeys to success, leaning into their talents and jump into the captain seat to reach their full potential in any area. So our guest, Helen from Washington, D.C., attended Dunbar High School before attending Penn State University to play some good football. During the college years, had a pivot and transfer for some missteps at PSU. During that transition time, he made his decision to kind of scale the new mountain of becoming a male model that led him to signing with the world-leading modeling talent agency, Willema. Let me see if I said that right. Willema, is that it? But anyway, that led to brand like modeling and doing deals with brands such as Ralph Lauren, POLO. It ain't Ralph though. Nike, Tommy Hilfiger, just to name a few, Reebok, and some others that you guys will definitely probably see him walking around the mall or something like that. He went on to put on his entrepreneurship hat and founded No Shaytan Shall Prosper LLC, which launched two brands, NSSP, and groundbreaking black underwear, a luxury men's underwear line. You'll sure to be hearing about some of my favorite underwear. I don't know if that's TMI, but man, since I got a pair, couldn't do anything else but wear those. But let's welcome my man, James J. Mac McDonald.
What's up, JK? What's up,
man? What's up,
Wilhelmina.
Say it again.
Wilhelmina.
Wilhelmina. So I butchered that because I'm not, I can't read or I'm not in the modeling world. But yeah, I know that's big time though.
Yeah.
It is the best though. So man, welcome on.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
So you've been an example of somebody that, keeps striving to reach new heights, whether it's, in football, transitioning out, becoming a model, transitioning, becoming an entrepreneur, launching a product, black men's underwear, to reach new heights in your career, using sports as a catalyst, right? To kind of get to the point that you are now, whether it's instilling certain work habits, how to move, competitive nature, discipline, different things of that nature. What advice would you give your 16-year-old self entering the football industry or just the life journey that sports brings you?
It's everything is perfect and it was written. That's probably what I would tell myself when I was 16. I was actually reflecting on that the other day, and I was just thinking about how much of I'm 35 now, but before 35, I've just about forgotten everything that I ever knew.
Okay.
And so I would just tell myself at 16, everything is perfect. It was written. And just don't trip. Just keep it going, and everything will work out. I think that's probably the best advice, because I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't have ended up here. And so I wouldn't have tried to divert my course or change anything. Just everything.
So the purpose of you
So
the purpose of you telling yourself that, you feel like looking back that you were worrying about different things, or was that the case before?
No, I think when you're a kid, you don't know what anything is. So for me, because I didn't have a cell phone or access to any other aspect of life. So my life at the time was my life. So I grew up in a bad neighborhood. I didn't know it was a bad neighborhood until I saw a good neighborhood until I moved out. I didn't know that I didn't have access to resources until I saw that those resources were available until I moved out. And so, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I don't think anything was bad. I just, those times where I did think that I was struggling with anything, I just accepted that as part of life, even at 16. I think when you get older and you realize that this stuff is quote unquote good or bad, then that's when you're just like, why me? But at 16, I definitely was not like, why me? So.
Okay. I got you. Perfect. So you just saying it's written.
Yeah.
So that means just keep doing your thing, young J Mac. That's perfect. You know what I mean? So coming from DC, athletes everywhere, obviously. known for big basketball plays. You got the Something in the Water documentary. All the guys coming from that area, but you played with multiple NFL players on your high school team. How was your recruiting process?
It was so I went to high school with Vernon and Vontae Davis. Vernon was 2 years in front of me, and Vontae was a year behind me. Right behind Vontae was Aurelius Ben, and right before Vernon was Josh Cribbs, and I forgot we had a really good fullback who ended up going to the league, and he played for Maryland. His last name was Lynch. I forgot his name. And we had like Marcus Winbush, and we had all these really good players. And then I played basketball where I played against like Kevin Durant and Michael Beasley and James Harden and Amari Stoudemire, like just from playing basketball and Jeff Green. And so it was one of those experiences. I didn't know it was cool. I just like, these are the dudes I have to play against. And so my recruiting process, looking back on it now, it was definitely helped by having Vernon and Josh come before me. I got to see Coach Johnson, who recruited me at Penn State, for the first time my freshman year when he was recruiting Vernon. And I'll never forget the practice when Vernon had went out, like we were doing like one-on-ones, and like they threw, like Vernon used to always wear his shirt like rolled up, like abs showing. He had his little dreads in the back. And I'll never forget, like, they did, like, one-on-one drills, and Vernon went up, and, like, he caught a fade with, like, one hand. And Coach Johnson came out for practice for 5 minutes, looked at that, and was like, all right, cool, we're good. And he left. And I just remember thinking, like, who is that guy? And, like, he had a Penn State gear, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so getting recruited out of Dunbar, it was kind of just like, yeah, that's what you do.
It was like a byproduct of going to the school.
Yeah, it was a standard.
Was it kind of like
that? We used to have, Dunbar's the first African-American public high school in America. And so just those little aspects of resource, I guess, like greatness in sports and education and everything was kind of just the standard. Like, that's what happened at this school. Like, that's what happened. At that point, we had won 4 out of the last 5 city championships. And so, like, it just was like, yeah, of course we have recruiters coming in there.
So was it safe to say, so it was kind of, you weren't really focused on getting recruited. It was just kind of like, all right, we play sports, people are going to come, they're going to come check us out.
Yo, Jay, I sucked for all of my, like, athletic career, like, because I played, like, I was trash. Like, I knew I sucked. Like, my mom let me know I sucked. Like, everybody around me on my block was better than me. Like, it never was, like, I never thought I was the best. Like, never, ever. Like, I never got it messed up that I was the best. And so, getting recruited, I remember my first scholarship offer came, like, the end of my sophomore year, and it came from, like, either Connecticut or, like, Boston College. And it still didn't click to me to, like, someone wanted me to come play football for them because I was just I sucked. So but obviously I wasn't that bad because I had these recruiters coming to offer me scholarships, but I had never thought about going to college. Not because I didn't think I was capable, it just wasn't a thought. I didn't have that in my ecosystem at all. Like, my parents didn't go to college. No one in my neighborhood went to college. And if you did, you went to like Bowie State, Howard, and you didn't play ball. You just went. Like, I had so many like steps ahead of me that I didn't really think about walking them at all until I got to the actual step.
Dang, okay. So that makes perfect sense. Like, in a sense of, like, you're just kind of going there as a part of the culture. You start getting offers. Like, you start getting recruited, but you don't think you're good. Does that shift your focus? Do you then now starting to get disciplined on, like, all right, I wanna play big time football?
I've always been aware of myself, but that never stopped me from trying. Like, just because I didn't think I was the best, like I'm still going to work to try to be the best. And I think that's what helped me separate myself, because I knew I wasn't better than Vernon, than Aurelius, than Trey Kelly in basketball. I knew when I played against Jeff Green, I knew I wasn't getting recruited by Georgetown, and like I knew when I played against Mario Manningham in high school, like I knew I wasn't him. Like, but that made me work so much harder. Like that made me just no. Actually, I thought about this the other day. I didn't think I was working hard. I was just doing what the coaches told me to do to the best of my abilities until the whistle blew every time. And it wasn't a point of me thinking like I'm gonna outwork you. Like, no, I'm just gonna do what I'm told to do, and I'm gonna do it as hard as I can do it until I can't no more. And I didn't look at it as hard work. I just looked at it as doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I did in education. That's what I did in sports. And yeah, man, that's how I got to that place where I was getting recruited, because I ran into Derek at camps. I ran
Right.
into all these players in camps, like, but I'm like on the front page of the Washington Post, but I don't even know that the Washington Post is like a national paper. It's
Right.
just the new local newspaper to me. And so yeah, just
So growing up around that.
these chances, these serendipitous chances, I was just happen to be a part of.
Nah, that's perfect, man. Because that's a lot of the times, like, the situations when you just kind of look at the just professional sports in general, right? You start seeing where people come from, and you're like, oh, they all kind of come from this area, but there's like there's normalcy of greatness. Like you're naming all the players that are surrounding you. It's like, yeah, like this is kind of what we do. Like I gotta get in where I fit in, right? I gotta talk about myself. Like growing up here, like people talk about me being fast, like, but I don't really talk about it because like I was never the fastest where I was growing up at. Like there was people faster than me, you know what I mean? So it was like my man Andrew Johnson. A shout out to Drew, but like, hey, I never beat him. So it's like when I'm like to your point, right? So you kind of keep that, and it's just like I gotta do what I do to get better and open up these different doors. So once you get that opportunity, it's like, all right, you got a scholarship offer, $100,000, $200,000 free of debt. Like when did you realize like it's a little different, or did you never
Um,
realize it?
I think I realized that I don't think I realized it until I left college. Honestly, like like
Wow.
until the opportunity was already passed, and I was like, holy crap! I played for Joe Paterno. Like I'm in, like I never knew the price of an education in college. Like I never knew the price of what's happening to me as far as like monetarily, or even like the biggest situation, because again, like I'm playing against these guys in high school. I'm growing up with these guys because I've seen these guys around in my ecosystem since I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And then I'm getting scholarship offers from D1 schools immediately. And then I I committed to Notre Dame, and then I decommitted because they fired the coach. And then I go to Penn State, and I'm playing in the whiteout, and I'm seeing all these things. I'm floating in this ecosystem of just greatness, and then it didn't hit me until I fell out of that ecosystem. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but when I fell out of that ecosystem, that's when I was like, oh snap! Like I gotta wash my own jersey. Like oh what? Like what? Like that was a luxury? I didn't know that was a luxury. I thought that was the standard. Like what happened, bro? Like, and so it took those
No, that's
moments of
definitely true.
just recognition. Yeah.
That's definitely true because I think about, I mean, we talk about the recruiting process and where it kind of starts, right? 13, 14. And it's like a time where you just, your identity, like depending on where you are, like depending like what type of attention you get, what type of value you place on yourself, your identity is kind of wrapped up in that sport. Like you're saying, becomes like kind of normal, not really like something that you can use to stack stones on top of to kind of accelerate, your growth, your career, whatever that may be. Did you feel like the recruiting process kind of accelerated your maturation process?
Again, at 13 to 14 years old. So,
Well, all the way, let's just say when you started getting like 16 to
all right, cool.
20, like,
So
right? Like just that whole,
where I started. All right, so I guess for me, the Nike camp when I was, I guess, 16 at Penn State. Yeah, I guess the Nike camp at Penn State where I like, uh, first of all, I didn't like. I just thought about that. It was at Penn State. I don't even wow. Like, yeah, because at that point I didn't have a scholarship. I only went because Vernon had just played in the All-American game. And so I was riding the coattail of him. And so I got invited just off of the strength of him. And so I ended up at the Penn State Nike camp. I probably saw you, don't remember. I probably saw a lot of people who I don't remember. The only person I remember was Derek because I remember his dad from the Maryland camp. And I remember, what was the Spark training guy's name from Nike? I can't think of his name, but I just remember the drills that they had us do. And I remember that's when I was like, oh, like, these guys are really good. Like, these are, and again, it was almost like, then why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? Like,
so you didn't have like, did you know why you were getting recruited? Like, did you understand, like, you didn't, like, did you understand, like, okay, I fit the size profile of most of these receivers. Like, I know I'm 6'2", I'm more athletic. Were you aware of that at least?
I feel like I'm the Forrest Gump of life at times. I had no idea. Like, Jake, I'm dead serious. Like, I had no, and I think that's what messed me up when I got to Penn State. Like, I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know what I did to actually get to this point. And so I didn't know why I was getting recruited. I knew that I scored a lot of touchdowns and, I did that. But again, like Aurelius was right behind me and he was clearly like the best receiver on my team, but he was in 9th grade. But I was getting all the accolades and I'm just like, man, y'all must not be paying attention. So it was really one of those things where eventually, yeah, like when I got to, it didn't hit me until I guess my Penn State visit where I'm in a room with like other recruits and I'm talking to the wide receiver coach and he's just telling me, this is the setup, these are the ideas that I have for you guys playing next year. And I was like, all right, cool, like great, like yeah, let's do it. I'm just looking at it simply as a next level of a football game, like a new football team. I have no idea what Big Ten football is about. I have no idea what anything is about. All I know is I'm going to go out here, I'm going to catch a football, I'm going to run the same slip screen that I was running in high school. Like, everything's the same. Like, I have no idea that I'm actually getting into a new atmosphere of athletics and of life.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Like, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of times you get people that are kind of real poignant about their approach to interview people you probably heard where it's like, we had a blueprint, we're going about this. Like, I was like that, where it's like, all right, this is the step, boom, boom, like real tactical, right? And then you say you're going through it and it's like, boom, it's like this. And we recruited players like that. And you see different things, like it's different all along the path, right? And it doesn't really matter. Like some people go, to the top either way. So it's not like one way is right or wrong, but it's always interesting hearing like throughout the recruiting process, because then you gotta try to find what's the common thread, right? That's why I was trying to say, like, all right, there's guys that are super duper focused, but they might be 5'7", running around trying hard as they can, knowing everything about the process and be like, I know all this, I'm this, but like you're 5'7", you know what I mean? Like understanding like you did have certain gifts, but you were just kind of unaware because they were like God-given abilities that it was just like, I'm just kind of showing them off. And there's people around me that I think are more gifted than me. That's pretty interesting. So you said you were committed to Notre Dame and you decommitted. What did you end up basing your decision on?
Well, so I had got recruited by, I got offered by Tyrone Willingham at Notre Dame and his staff. And at that point, I actually didn't visit Notre Dame until sophomore year at Penn State when we played them. Like, I had never seen the campus, but I had watched Notre Dame.
So you committed before ever seeing you? So you committed without seeing the campus?
I had seen that was the only team I grew up seeing on TV was Notre Dame on CBS or whatever, NBC. And so I was just like, yeah. That's when I was like, yeah, I know them. I'm definitely going there. Like, yeah, sure. Like, if I don't know anything else, like, all the only teams I knew in college were Notre Dame. I mean, in high school were Notre Dame. I used to watch the Florida State, Miami games all the time. And I knew Penn State because of Coach Paterno. But other than that, like, wow. Yeah, I committed Notre Dame just off of strength. Like, yo, it's not going to get any better than Notre Dame. And
Yeah.
so I committed to Tyrone Willingham, but they fired him. And then when they fired him, my coach was like, Coach Jeffries, he suggested like, hey, you should open up your recruiting process and actually go take visits and do your due diligence. And I was like, okay, great. And so I had decommitted. Actually, just didn't decommit. I just never signed the letter of intent. I hadn't signed yet, so I just opened up the process again. And because they had hired Charlie Weiss, and so I got to meet Coach Weiss. He came to visit, and he was still the offensive coordinator at for the Patriots. And I believe that year they
Okay.
went to the Super Bowl, or they were on their way to the Super Bowl. And he had called me the night before the Super Bowl, and he was like, "This could be you in 4 years if you come to Notre Dame." And so initially I got excited, but then like the hustler in me was like, "Man, you spitting game!" Like it's like I immediately like, my antennas just went up. I was like, "Man, I know somebody's spitting game when they spitting game." So I had opened up my process and I started taking my official visits.
So what was your best visit?
By far, Kansas,
Where?
Kansas, UK, KU.
For
I
real?
swear,
You got,
yo,
what-
Kansas.
I don't know if you could tell me like what was great about
I
the
mean,
visit.
all right, so I visited. I took a visit to UCLA, to Kansas,
Okay.
and to Penn State.
I, I wasn't expecting Kansas. I'm just saying, what was like when you asked me, mine was Florida, but there's reasons
So
Florida,
yeah, for sure.
like what was, yeah, what they doing out in
So
Lawrence?
Kansas was. I don't know. I'm realizing even now to this day, I'm just a guy who loves space, like just open
I got you.
space. Like I just love space. I'm too much traffic and horns and sounds just give me like anxiety. But Kansas was like my first college experience. So I got to go see a basketball game. Rock chalk. Like that was intense. I'm hanging out with I knew the KU basketball players, so I'm hanging out with them. At the time, they were coming off uh, like a 4-8 season, but it was like a super competitive 4-8 season where they're competing with Texas, where they were competing with Oklahoma. They were competing with these teams that were perennially like kicking their butt. You can tell they're like a couple players away, like just a couple good recruits away from making some noise, and that touched me. That was just like, man, I can come here and I can compete, and I can actually be a part of something different and new. And like we went, we partied. It was like my. You got to imagine, like I'm from a place where we don't have like house parties. Like our house parties growing up were basement parties where your parents were upstairs. And so like this is like my first party that I've seen like on TV. And I wasn't a drinker. Like I didn't drink on the visit, but like my parents are there with me. My family's there with me. My brother, my sister, my stepdad, and my mom were all there with me. And I had my own room, and they had their room. And I was just able to just immerse myself in that college experience for that weekend. I got to go visit like Wilt Chamberlain's dorm room, which for so many reasons is cool, but like kind of like you're just like, this is Wilt Chamberlain's room. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
KU was my best. Like my best. Penn State was actually my worst visit.
Really? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was just mediocre for me as well. But like, I mean, that's interesting when you're saying that. That's kind of what you like was the space and being out there like that. 'Cause that kind of transitions us a little bit coming from the inner city DC. Like, how was your transition to state college? It seems like it must have been pretty simple since that's what you were looking for.
As a kid, you can't really explain your likes and dislikes because it's almost like you're moving off of intuition and instinct until you get to a certain age of be able to reflect and to kind of go back and say like, all right, cool, I like this, I don't like this. When I got to Penn State, at that point, I had never had a white classmate. I had never, the only interaction with another culture beyond, we had a really heavy Mexican, like Mexican students within our school, but I never had I never had a white classmate. So when I got to college, my only interaction with that culture was through MTV, like TRL, Disney Channel, and movies. That's it. Like Full House, Step by Step, stuff like that. And so when I was super excited to meet white people, uh, like super excited because I was just like, man, these are the people I see on TV. I can't wait to meet like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. Like that was my mentality. And
Coming from
so
DC.
uh, the Penn State experience, my expectations was simply to go and experience this new life. Like I'm totally open to this thing. There were a couple moments when it's like, oh, like this is exclusive to like my city and my culture. I remember I ordered takeout. Well, we call it carryout, but I ordered carryout for the first time. And I called the spot and I was like, I asked for some wings. And I was like, all right, cool, make sure you put mumbo sauce on it. And they were like, what? I was like, mumbo sauce. And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, bro, mumbo sauce ketchup. And they're just like, sir, first of all, they were Asian, but they didn't have like an accent because, you know, they're in college and they're not, you know, for whatever reason, they were probably like second, third generation in this country. And so that threw me off a little bit. And then they didn't have mumbo sauce. And I was just like, all right, man, but why am I in State College ordering chicken wings? Like, and so just those things, you know, not knowing that everyone doesn't know what a do-rag is or wave grease is. The clothes that we wore in DC everything was exclusive to DC. And I didn't know that. I mean, me and you went through that where you're like, yo, what is hobo?
No, I knew what it was, but that was a thing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like a melting pot of the East Coast, right? You come to Penn State, it's like, all right, you got the DC crew, you got Philly, you got New York, I mean, a little bit of Pittsburgh, but I mean, you're right. It's like immersing into a whole different culture. Like you're learning, because like you're in State College where that's completely different culture in general, but you're coming here to play football where that's like an elevated thing when you're in that space. So it's an interesting dichotomy of flow. So like even coming in, you're just kind of wide open looking for that new experience. It's like, all right, well, how was it? So we get in there and you're talking about all the social aspects of it. What was your welcome to the Big Ten moment in terms of football?
So I got there in June. So I came right after I graduated. I came straight to summer courses. And remember, like during the process, like the wide receiver coach is like, "Yo, like you're coming in here." They're showing me the depth chart. It's like, "Yeah, you're probably definitely going to start like your freshman year." So I'm just like, "All right, bet." And so I'm going in there like with some, "All right, cool. Let's continue what I was doing in high school. Like, let's not. This is what it is. It's just football. Let's go." And so my first week there, my first few weeks there, I was like, you know, kind of partying, figuring things out. And I hurt my neck at the pool. I hurt my neck from jumping off the high dive at the pool. So the first 7-on-7 where it was like optional meetup, you know, we got Mike Robb out there. We got Tony Hunt. We got AZ. We got Flip. We have all these guys who are just there and we're just going there to get some reps in. And so that's the first time I meet Turk. I met D. Will, and I'm meeting like probably Dion and Mark Rubin. I remember Mark and Kevin Cousins, like all these people, and I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, but these are men. This is my first time being around like men, and I'm just like, it just smells different. Like you're just like, oh, like you guys are grown-ups, like. Because, like, you're still a kid, but you know what a grown-up is. You're like, oh, you guys are grown-ups. And they're, like, yelling and cursing. I'm just like, oh, man, like, oh, I just came to play football. And so, I remember the first 7-on-7. Mike is telling me to run, like, an out route, but my neck is stiff. And so I go there, and I, like, run the route, and I, like, do the turn. And, like, everybody's just looking at me like, who is this kid? Like, why are you so stiff? And I'm just like, yo, I hurt my neck at the pool. And I just remember that feeling of just disappointing adults. And that was just a moment where you're just like, man, I'm letting down like grown-ups. And it's a different feeling for a kid when you let down a grown-up.
When those grown-ups are your
And those
teammates.
grown-ups are like, you know that they're depending on you not to be a kid. And so that probably was my first like, all right, cool. Like this isn't high school, and you have to grow up a little bit, buddy. Yeah.
No, that's let's dig into that a little bit because that's interesting. Is like you're right. Because that was like a moment where it's like, all right, you got to grow up because that was before our first workout, and you got hurt doing something optional, which is diving out, going swimming and diving off the high dive, right? Just college stuff. Being a college kid, you jump in there and it's like having fun, and hurt yourself a little bit before you came out there. I do remember that, but that feeling of letting down your teammates, if something like that does happen, it's just like. It does like shake it up a little bit. It's like, all right, this is serious. These guys really matter. Cause that was the temperature when we got there anyway, because it was like all these guys, 05 year, we had a great year, but it was all these seniors. It was like their last hurrah, and they had the chips all in and everything was serious. I definitely remember that being like a tense time within the team. So while we were there, did you recognize that there was like a critical advantage like being at Penn State, like you said, like you were like around grown men, people that, were having a good season, or just the culture at Penn State? Like, did you feel, man, this is a critical advantage. I got to take advantage of this or that?
No, no, it was again one of those moments where I didn't have anything to compare it to. So that was just what it was. Like I didn't like up to that point. And even beyond that point, like I had never played with a losing organization. Not that I was selecting places, because obviously Penn State had a couple rough years before that. It just happened that I've always been a part of like a winning situation. And so my expectation was, all right, cool, we're going to win. Again, I didn't really even watch Penn State growing up. And I had, on your visit, they're like, oh, yeah, they had this record. But I was like, I don't care. Like, what does that have to do with me? Like, it has nothing to do with me. And so I think it hit me that it was super serious for them was probably my sophomore year when they were gone, because there was so much intensity to every practice, to everything. They were so serious. They were just like, if you're not coming to do this thing, to finish this as hard as you can, then we don't even want you out here. But that was the standard when I got there. And so I didn't notice the dip until they left. And I was like, oh, like you guys don't take practice serious every day. They did, because that was it. Like a lot of those guys never played football again. And they were so aware of that. Like, this is it. Like, I don't want to get a real job. Or if I do, like, I'm going to go hard as I can this last year, because I need to continue to play football. I can't go out like a loser. And this is it. Like, they were grown-ups. Like, they were adults. Like, they knew what was on the line.
You're putting like that is a great perspective on that squad, because we know that 05 team gets talked about a lot, just about the talent injection from when me and Derek and everybody came in, but man, the guys were serious, man. Just the internal aspect, like talking about guys that treated that thing like a professional, like it was intense at all times. Like there was no joking. Like the locker room wasn't like play. Gus was like, yo, what's up tomorrow? Like I remember, because it was there early, and it was AZ and all those boys, man. That's a true story. So we jump. I mean, but you also like going out of it and working in football. I kind of use that as a model of when I was doing like the talent act in college football recruiting, looking for players of a certain caliber, like what makes them push. You see the guys that kind of are getting drafted from Penn State now, like they kind of embody that in that culture where it's the most competitive thing, is trying to manufacture that competitiveness where you can't really survive if you're not like a ultra competitor, right? In everything that you do. Because that's kind of the benefit, I think, going through college football, is that you're able to like take critical feedback. You're able to compete on a daily basis, look in the mirror and get back up and do it every day. Like everybody that's not in it, they don't do that. You know what I mean? Just whether it's in business or, just going to school normally. But you got to notice the opportunity, right? You talk about you can miss it if you're going through, you don't pay attention, but we'll get to like when you do start to notice it. So entrepreneur like yourself, everybody's getting paid nowadays in college football. What would have been your NIL strategy if you were in college football right now?
I think about that every so often, and honestly, I don't know what it would have been. I'm still a goofball, and that has served me. Being goofy and being silly, that serves me. Looking the way I look has served me, obviously. And so I don't know. Do I have access to social media like in the 05, 06?
Of course, everything that's going on right now. Like
If
if
I
you
was
were in
probably
college,
the way
there's
I am
everything that
now,
you
first
know.
of all, I probably will understand the opportunity better. I would definitely be more aware of like, all right, cool. Like if I meet AZ and I have access to these resources, I'm like, all right, cool. I actually need to be serious about everything, including the craft of crafting my NIL image.
So you're thinking automatically NIL would put it like just automatically push you in a frame of like, yo, this is serious. Like you're a business asset
For
right now.
sure. For sure. If
Got
I'm
you.
coming from the situation that I was coming from into an NIL situation, like, yeah, bro, like I can make some dough and kind of send it back to my mom. Like I'm thinking about now, like my mom had a house in '05 when I left, and it's in DC. She had a house where the mortgage was luckily like I think like less than $1,000 a month, and she couldn't afford it. So imagine if I had an NIL contract, like bro, like that's cake, and I have a house when I leave college. And so, like thinking about stuff like that, I guess I would have just leveraged being goofy and being silly and having a hairline and being goofy. I don't know. I guess.
But no, that's real though, because you're just like standing into your kind of truth or whatever you are, your talents are, right? Because like there is an aspect to do that because you're in college, you're in a 50,000 student ecosystem, whether it's like hosting parties that's coming up like that, because like you can get a following of 10,000 people, and like whether you're doing gigs 2,000 here, 3,000, but like you can make money kind of with your likeness, and that's kind of what you're talking about is like recognizing your likeness to do it. And I think what you point out also is a benefit that NIL that you don't really hear too much about is that it focuses guys on like there's money right here. Like, you know what I mean? When we were coming up, it was like, man, we got $30 scholarship checks. So they're like, man, you get this money, you become 1%, and we going out Thursday, man. Like, so it's like, but just saying that where it's just like, all right, yeah, but we still got to live here. But like, if there's money right now and it's like, all right, this person's looking at me like this, you start looking at money opportunities all around you. So that is a definite thing where like the NIL puts the parameters of the frame on a player. Like, look, man, you're in a business and you can make money. Don't mess it up. Kind of make you play cards all up, cards face up. What's your true market value? Yeah. So going through college, man, what's your most memorable, experience?
Most memorable by far. It's just my guys, the people. It's for me, all those games that I was able to play in and all the practices, they were just blurs. And so I always remember the feeling though. Like I'll never forget, I still get an itch when I smell fresh grass. Like around the summertime and you're like driving through whatever city and you smell fresh grass and like it's like August, you're like, oh man, that's camp. Like I can never, I don't know how, but like that smell of like shoulder pads and helmets and like you never want to smell it again, but if you smell it, you know what it is. Like you're just like, oh man, like you can hear the sounds, just the sound of your cleats hitting the ground, like as you walk out to practice and every time I spin a football, man, you can that whiff of the ball goes past your nose, and you're just like, you still feel it in you, and like you know that you'll never get that back. And so that is my biggest memory from college, and also just the people, man. I've never been able to make the relationships in after football that I was able to make while in football. You never realize that all of your friends come from sports until you no longer play sports, and it's hard for you to make friends. And so just the people, man, the people by far, man. My teammates, the words of advice from Todd Coca and uh, like just that, man. Like Coach Robinson, you know. I mean, not Coach. I mean, Big E to me. Uh, you know, Turk, T Hunt, Mike Robb, like just these lessons that they don't even know they passed down to me in life. Just that makes me, even to this day, that just brings me so much just gratitude, and the people, man, by far.
That's amazing because, like, you know, you just talk about that when you're picking a school, like just understanding the culture that you're going into when you're picking, like you're going to be immersed in this. And like these are going to be like a lot of the tentacles that you're going to hang on to when you leave, whether it's personal relationships, business relationships, career development opportunities, just networking, different things. And like kind of what you say, you take little pieces because this is like a part where you're growing, your maturation process, and you see a lot of different people, right? Like you talk about the people, right? Everybody sees Spice now, but Spice was doing that at workouts when we were in college, like acting the exact same way. You know what I mean? Leaning into your strengths. And you always always admire people from Penn State because we kind of all did it in different ways. Like you got Mike Robb that wanted to be a broadcaster. You got Spice doing that. You talk about like a Mark Rubin, you know, Wall Street. You got you being a model, you know, Lydell, you know, he's a high level senior administrator, athletic administrator. You know, it's just, and kind of just leaning into those strengths and like that aspect of kind of finding your lane. And it's just so important when you're going through that process. But we all know that the journey to success is never a straight line, regardless of, you know, what happens or what we might think. Can you talk about a little bit what led you to transferring from Penn State?
Say that one more time.
Can you talk about a little bit what led you to transferring from Penn State?
Oh man, well, let's go there. So the thing reflecting is, you know, I guess the shadow of not growing up around different cultures, not being exposed to small things like house parties and not ever drinking before college and not having anyone actually go to college to kind of warn you of these things. And you never realize one thing that people don't realize when you come from maybe an inner city or just a place where the access to other parts of society are limited, is that you are not prepared for to handle the responsibility of being by yourself. You know, I didn't grow up poor or without resources. Like I had family around. But one thing that I wasn't prepared for was to be by myself and not have someone to tell me, you know, wake up and go to class, make sure that you do your laundry, make sure that you don't stay out all night. Hey man, if you're going to drink, like do this, do that. You don't need to impress people. People kind of like you the way you are. Just these things that were givens by your parents or your environment. They're just like, yeah, man, you don't do that. Why would you do that? And it's like, because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. And so, long-winded, when I had three things happen to me in college that led to me eventually having to transfer. The first was my sophomore year, I pulled a fire alarm. I don't know why I did that. It was so silly, but it was just one of those things where I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was like, I just pulled a fire alarm. And I thought I could push it back up, but no, that's not how fire alarms work. My second thing was I had got into, it was one of those long summers where you're just up there and there's no one else there except for you guys and some students who are trying to do some extracurricular work. So we went to Walmart in the middle of the night and we all bought BB guns. And we had a BB gun fight in the middle of the summer. So we all wore snowsuits and snow goggles. And we got into a BB gun fight. And our stuff was straight. At this point, we were like sophomores. We had a BB gun fight, whatever. One of us accidentally breaks a window. But we didn't know that we were influencing the freshmen to go get BB guns. And so they went to go get BB guns, and they were wilding out in their dorm rooms. And so it became like this big investigation. And of course, me trying to be honest and live with integrity, I was like, yeah, I had a BB gun. And they was like, yeah, you got to go. And so they kicked me off. So I got suspended from something, maybe camp or something. I think I got suspended from camp and I couldn't go to camp. And so I had to live off campus for a while. So that was my second strike. And then my third strike was probably my most innocent out of all of them. I had went out and got some drink. I had one drink. And at the time, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was driving her car while she was out of town. And I didn't know that her tags were dead. And so I was driving her car, and I had saw one of my teammates, and he was walking, and I knew he had a penchant for doing crazy stuff when he was drunk. So I was trying to be, at that point, I had already graduated, so I was a red shirt. I was going into my red shirt senior year. And so I see him walking, and so I ask him, does he need a ride? And so he hops in the car, and I give him a ride. And my place was left. His place was right. And so I wasn't swerving or anything. I just turned right to take him home, and the police saw that my tags were dead. And so they didn't pull me over for driving drunk. They pulled me over for dead tags. And so I told him the situation. He was like, hey, he said, your tags are dead. And I was like, yeah, they're my girl's car. And he was like, all right, cool, no problem. You're fine. He said, have you been drinking? I said, yeah, I had one drink. He's like, all right, cool. I didn't pull you over for swerving or anything. I don't smell any alcohol. You're fine. And so he gave me my license back, and he looked in the car, and I had my teammate with me who was drunk. And he was just like, do you mind taking the test? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Obviously, I failed the test, whatever the test was, and I got arrested. And the thing that still kind of hurts me to this day was that obviously I was able to drive, and I failed whatever test because they booked me and then immediately released me. Like, I didn't have to spend any time in drunk or sober. I didn't have to spend any time in jail. I didn't have to sober up. But it was just a lesson of just like, it was my fault I'm driving a car with dead tags, and it was my fault that I had a drink and I drove. Like, as much as I want to be look at it like it's the police officer's fault or my teammate's fault, at the end of the day, it was my fault. It was my choice to do these things, and so.
Was that the approach that you took when it first happened?
Say that again?
Or did it take you a while to get to there? I said, was that like your perspective on it when it first happened?
Yeah, that was definitely my perspective. It was actually the first time that I can remember. I might have done it before, but it was actually the moment where I had a great off season. I had got up to like 225. I was lifting. I was like, yeah, this is my last. I felt like AZ in them. Like, I was like, this is my last time. Like, I have to get it done this year. I had a great off season. I was clearly pushing for a starting position, and it was the first time I asked myself, like, why me? Like I'm actually just stepping out trying to help. Like why me? Like, what did I do this time? And that actually hurt a lot because I never got an opportunity to score a touchdown at Penn State, and that bothers me to this day. And yeah, man, that was actually a super heartbreaking moment. I remember we were doing summer workouts. Again, it was almost like full circle. We're doing summer workouts, and here I am. I did a knucklehead thing again, and the wide receiver coach comes downstairs and he's like, yo, coach wants to talk to you. I was like, oh man, like I already got the DUI. I already knew. And so Coach Paterno, he told me, he was like, hey man, I like you. I think you're a great kid. I know you. He said he gave me all the positive things, like, but hey, man, you got to go. And I was just like, all right, like all right. I mean, I get it. Like, okay, like call my only person that I broke down for is my mom because I really let my mom down. I felt like I let my mom down. I felt like I let down like a whole situation back home because like my sophomore year, like I had promised my mom the next time she'll see me, I'm gonna drive home in a Lamborghini. And so to call her
Nah.
and say, Mom, I got kicked off the team. And, she's just trying to, again, like it was one of those moments where you don't realize, like, for the first time, like your mom is not there to hug you. Like you have to kind of take this bullet by yourself.
No, that's real. Cause like at that point, you said it's like all the like the chips kind of fall a little bit. Like where did you pivot? And so you're at that point. He's like, all right, you're not on the team anymore. You break down to your mom. He's like, all right, I'm still trying to play. And you transition to the school in West Virginia. What was the name of that school? One more time.
Glenville State.
Glenville State is where he transitions to. So when you get there, how much it was a culture shock? Like, because we all know about like something happens, that trauma of like, I got in trouble. It's like, boom. And then you still got to like walk through like what that happened. Like, it's like, damn, I'm messed up here. But it's like, all right, I'm walking through it. I got to get back. I got to get up out of the pit like a gladiator, right? So tell me about that when you get there. How much of a culture shock is it?
Man, Glenville State. So again, I still have the same mindset of like, this is it. Like, I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, I came here just to ball. Like, I came here to play ball. Like, I'm not here to make friends. Like, I'm aware of who I am. I'm aware of the situation I'm coming from. I know that I'm this big time transfer from Penn State. I understand that this is a D2 school. I understand that I'll clearly be the at least the most notable player on the team. I have no competition as far as starting, so I'm clearly going to be a starter. All right, so let's work on what's next. Let's figure out what's next. And so the culture thing was, as much as I love space, it was too much space. Glenville State is the main attraction within Glenville, West Virginia. I think the school has like 1,400 kids, and I think the town maybe has like 2,000 people. They had at the time they only had a Subway and a Pizza Hut and a Dollar General, and a really good and a super probably the best Chinese food place I've ever had in America. It's random.
Really?
They had one traffic light, and and so I chose to go there because I told the coach what my intentions were. I was like, I just want to ball. He was like, all right, come here and ball. Like, we'll make sure that, you're already graduated, so we'll make sure that you're completely going to be able to play ball. Their only claim to fame at the time was that Channing Tatum had went there for a semester. And that was actually the prelude to Magic Mike, true story. Oh, so he went to Glenville State, and after he went to Glenville State, he moved to Florida where he became a stripper. That was their claim to fame at that point. And so, Glenville State was a big culture shock. It was super. They had the houses there the mobile houses that you get delivered on trucks. They had a lot of those. A lot of four-wheelers, a lot of deer. I want to say they had bears. Yeah, they had bears. And they had like bear warning signs everywhere. So it was like one time I was on my way to go just do some practice, do some training, and there was a bear on the football field. Oh. And so yeah, like I remember. I had to wash my own clothes like after practice, and I was just like, it was annoying. I was like, all right, whatever. They give you your jersey before the game, and like the jersey was super long, so you had to go and personally get it tailored to fit you. And I was like, I was just annoyed,
Personally go get it
huh?
tailored? You had to personally
I had to
tailor
get
it?
it tailored so it wouldn't be so long. So I was like, how do I find a tailor? Like, who's going to tailor? I don't know how to sew. I had teammates steal my like gloves and my cleats. Like, so they'd be in practice with my stuff, and I'm just like, bro, like it says my name. It has like, what are you doing? Yeah,
So at this point, you're like, man, I am not at Penn, I'm not in state college
right,
anymore.
like straight up.
No, so that's it. That's like, I mean, that's a crazy story because like everybody that ever transitions from a school that kind of goes down to a different level where, you know, like the luxuries are gone, right? And you got to really dig yourself up out of that, whether it's, you know, transitioning out to become a model, whether it's like a Cam Newton story where he transitions and goes to Auburn, or Alvin Kamara, he transitions and goes to Tennessee. There's so many different stories where you kind of go into that little phase and people that come up out of there. So you go from DC to State College to West Virginia. When you're in West Virginia, like, was it Tatum, like the Magic Mike story that kind of inspired you to be like, all right, I'm going to Florida too to try my hand in modeling? Like, what made you say, like, look, it's like, yo, this is the famous alumni. I'm following his steps. Like what made you say, like, yo, I'm gonna try my hand at modeling?
Well, like you said, man, that path is never linear. It's always like this, like just ups and downs, winding roads. And so after I finished playing ball at Glenville, um, again, I didn't know what I didn't know, man. I was pretty ignorant to just life in general, how it transitions after college. And so after college, like college is coming to a completion, and I have no idea what that means for me. Like in my mind, I'm still going to play football. Like I'm about to get drafted. Like I had a decent year at Glenville State. I was like, I played at Penn State. Like I'm gonna get drafted just because. Like of course. Like I got recruited just because. Like I'm going to get drafted like it can't just stop. Like this doesn't stop, right? And so it stopped. And it's so unceremonious. No one lets you know it stopped. You just have to come to realization that hey, it's over. And so after I was lucky enough to get an invite to Penn State's pro day. I literally watched the draft thinking that hey, somebody's going to call my name, right? How does this work? Like somebody's going to call my name, and no one called my name. And so at this point, I moved back to DC and lived with my mom. And so I'm living in my mom's I'm back where it all started. I'm in my mom's basement. And it was just like so sobering. I'm just like, I'm back. And everybody who saw me leave as James, the number one player in DC, Washington Post All Met, see me. They hadn't seen me on TV because I didn't really get to play a lot at Penn State. But when they did, like, it was because I did something decent. And so when they see me back around the neighborhood, they're just like, I felt like, even though no one ever said anything explicitly, like I felt like damn, like you back, like damn, bro, like I got to go back to selling drugs now, like because you didn't work out. So like, and so I lived with my mom between my mom and my grandma for about 2 years. And so my girlfriend from college had moved to Miami. And so she had gave me the opportunity. She's like, look, you can move to Miami and I'll give you 3 months to find a job. And so that's what I did. I put my car on the train from DC to Orlando. I drove my car from Orlando to Miami. And I started working retail jobs at these different stops. And at that point, I had never thought about modeling. I started taking acting classes as a hobby, like strictly as a hobby, because I didn't know what to do with myself after football. Like I didn't want to use my degree. And even if I did want to use my degree, it was in broadcast journalism. I didn't even know how to go about it. And so I
Right.
knew that I was a decent looking guy. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to go. Maybe I can be on TV somehow. And so I started taking acting classes with with this acting coach down here, and then one day she said, "Hey, you ever thought about modeling?" And so I went to a casting, to an open casting down here, and at the time I was about 240. And so I go into the guy, and the guy's just like, "Oh, like you look good, but you need to like tighten it up a little bit."
You weighed 240
Yeah, bro,
pounds?
I was huge.
I didn't know you weighed 240. Okay. Okay. Got you. Because I was about to say, man, modeling is a highly competitive industry. You walked in that joint 240. Is that when you feel like you need to get serious about it? Like that process from going from 240 when dude was like, yo, you got to shape.
Again, man, I'm Forrest Gump. Like he was like, "All right, cool, just do it." And I was like, "All right, cool, I'm gonna go do it." Like I had no hiccups. I had no like, oh, like how I'm gonna do it. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna go work out super hard and then I'll lose it. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up losing. Initially, I lost like 40 pounds in 8 weeks. Like I just stopped eating like what I was eating. And I was eating at the time, I was eating like I was still training for football. And so I just stopped eating like fried chicken and cookies. I started staying hydrated. I started doing more cardio and less lifting. And the weight just kind of went away. And so I actually didn't go back to that same agency. Wilhelmina had an open casting. And so I had went to Wilhelmina, and I had some headshots made. And so I walked in there with my headshots, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll take you." And I was like, "All right, cool, great." It was again one of those moments like, "All right, cool, great." Like, thanks.
Yeah. Not even know it's one of the major
I had no idea.
modeling agencies out there.
No idea. No idea. So I walked in, and they were just like, "Yeah." And so people always ask me like, how did I get to like model? And I'm just like, yeah, I did that. But then I also went back to retail work. Like I went back to work that same day because I got the call that they wanted to sign me at work. They called my job, and I finished my shift, and I continued to do retail for like 3 more years. So
where were you working?
I was working at Cole Haan at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's in retail, like real that true kind of like actor, model, and lifestyle. Whether it's you got your day job and going on, don't call them interviews, but casting calls, right? Like for different things of that nature. Again, I think whole situated because you have to have a level of discipline and just a level of just fortitude to kind of push through. Whether transitioning from football, we always talk about transitioning from football and not wanting to be asked what's next. Like you can say you went to a new area and went into retail where you're like serving like customers coming up and different things like that. Like to an extent, rebranding yourself, right? Like in Miami, you're going from 240 pounds to like, all right, I'm doing this model thing. I got to lose weight, get down to 6'2", 185 model, right? So like going through that whole thing, what was the hardest part? I mean, I guess, from that transition from like player to model.
Was the way people went about like business. I could never, still to this day, I don't understand why people talk different in business. It really, just that the desire to like not try to hurt my feelings without being like, just tell me what you want from me. Like because we've been coached for so long. Like I played football from the time I was 8 till I was like 23. So like I'm used to like if I'm not playing, like my coach is going to tell me why. But like in corporate structure, even in modeling, like they don't really tell you why because so many people, they're trying to cater to people's emotions and feelings. And so luckily for me, I went into modeling. I started full time when I was 27. Even though I signed when I was like 25, like I didn't start taking it seriously. I was like 27. And so I would go and I would have these conversations with people, and you can just tell that they're used to talking to like 18-year-olds. And so I would have to stop them and say, hey, like, you can tell me what it is. Like, and I have no problem. Like, I'll go fix it. And so that was my biggest transition was communication because I didn't know why I wasn't booking jobs until I said like, hey, like, why am I not booking jobs? Like, can you tell me why? Like, because modeling is such a personal thing. Like, it's your face. Like, you can't change your face. Like, and so, but I was willing to go out there and be like, yo, like, tell me what is it about my face or my body that I can change? Because obviously I'm an asset and you guys signed me. So you do see that I'm able to get work. Like, tell me what I need to do to get work, because how do I get to, like, I remember, I'll never forget, I asked my agent, I'm like two months into modeling. I'm like, yo, so how do I work with Ralph Lauren? And he laughs at me. And I'm just like, what? Like, and he couldn't really tell me. He just said, he just laughed. And you could tell that he's never been asked that. And I was just like, yeah, all right, cool. Like, he still didn't answer me, but I kind of get that, like, it was a silly question, or that it needed some, it was nuanced and I needed to do a couple more things to get to that point.
No, for sure. Like, especially when you're going through that type of piece, right? Because I think all athletes have that transition mark where you're like bred your whole life, where it's like, yo, it's merit based. It's who's has the most yards, who has the most touchdowns when they get on the field, or tackles, or what, merit based production. And then you transition out, whether it's corporate America, whether it's still in sports coaching or front office track, or even getting into modeling, right? You talk about now it's like a level of networking and different things that really aren't so much merit based. And like, once you try to figure out what those critical points are that you can kind of separate yourself in a merit base, you see former athletes or people that kind of been in that structure of constant feedback. We talk about being a special power, being an athlete, going out to practice and every day getting corrected on what you're doing when you're one of the best at doing it on a daily basis, and knowing that there's always room to get better. So even like your approach to like the modeling agency, like, oh, what do I got to do? Like, tell me how I do it. I got my first job like that. Like, my first job outside of football, I worked for this company, Ideal Physical Therapy. Is like, I look back on my career, it's probably the best job preparation I had. It was a company that sold for millions of dollars. I had a front look seat with the top level executives and helping through that transition. But in my initial interview, I was the same way. It was like, man, what did I do better? How was it? What can I do better? Like, cause I'm just thinking, like, if it's not you, like, I need to know what the film says, because I got to get it right. Like, what's better, right? So like, they were so impressed by that's kind of opened the door for somebody like that I didn't have any experience to be able to press those buttons. But that is always, I see, is like a critical jump for like athletes in general that come up in that merit based, thinking and different things of that nature. Did you have any college connections help you during that?
No, man. That was actually, again, one of those things I never knew I needed to network in college. Like, it was really just one of those things. I was like, I was just so ignorant about a lot of stuff. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'll find somebody from Penn State, like in life, and they'll help me out. Like, of course. Not even thinking, like, I didn't even hang out with anybody except for football players. That's why I admire, like, Liddell. Like, I admire him so much, because we would go to parties and he would know, like, the doorman at a frat house. And he would be like, we wouldn't have to stand in line, or even when we got older and we were going trips, he would be able to talk to, like, the bouncers and, like, all these people. And, like, he worked with Obama and, like, all those things, like, he knew. Even if he didn't know, he developed this skill of being able to network with these people who, once he finished playing football, like, he can reach out to, because they're, football wasn't their life. They actually had something that they were looking forward to working on as a career after college. And so, yeah, man, to this day, I don't know anyone outside of Penn State as far as, like, being able to network with them or help them. Outside of, like, maybe a couple people who I've reconnected with. But as far as, like, getting an an advantage or anything, getting in the door, or at the time when I needed to get a job from anyone at Penn State, man, I didn't find anything. I couldn't connect with anyone. I didn't have anyone I connected with in college.
A lot of people mention that about just like taking advantage of that networking piece, right? Because even when you talk about networking, has like a dirty connotation to it, like, oh, I'm being fake, but you're right. Like even like our friend Lydell, he's been on the show. Prepare and Produce was the name of that episode. But his just not natural inclination to be able to network, right? Whether it's like build a relationship, have different interests outside of football, and where that leads, right? Like whether that's like Skilly leads into it, he's going to be an athletic director within the year or two, right? Where he's a senior level athletic administrator right now. So you see that like is a critical point in that industry. You know what I mean? But like it's a benefit for like all athletes when we're getting into these football ecosystems and you're just got this critical view, like you're saying, like if you knew you wanted to be a model, I'm sure like when we were at Penn State, there was something that you could have been like, oh, I need to talk to this person that works here or there. Like we're in right next to New York City and a lot of different things, but like having that kind of game plan, obviously the way that you wanted to become a model wasn't like in the blueprint. But with that being said, understanding like what chips that you have to push in, all right, like what your cars are affording you and leading into those talents, man. Like that's kind of what it comes down to. We're gonna take a quick break right here. I'm gonna do a LIG read for a quick service. Just 1 second. So does your son dream of playing college football at the highest level, or maybe just want to maximize their time playing sports and you want to give them every chance to succeed, but don't want to be left in the dark when it comes to the future during this critical part of the football career? That's where we come in, introducing the Recruiting and Football Business Masterclass, a comprehensive course that walks you through the entire recruiting process and football ecosystem, so you can help your son navigate the waters and identify the critical factors for making the right decision about his future. And his future is just as important as yours, and we'll show you how to make sure your hard-earned money isn't wasted on programs that won't bring him success. During this masterclass, you'll learn how student athletes are evaluated from the coach's standpoint and how you should be evaluating the school, how to navigate the recruiting waters. There's a lot of different curveballs with the NIL space, with the navigating the new normal, how to actually understand what your benefits are at each school, the common mistakes that most parents make, our blueprints of success, and 23 videos taught by me on very different aspects throughout the football process and the recruiting business in general. So check that out. The link will be in the bottom of the description, and we're jumping right back into this one. Back to the Mac. So, man, you went on to found No Shaytan Shall Prosper, LLC, which launched 2 brands. Some of my favorite underwear, black. Yeah, got it right there. Blacktown, holla. What was the inspiration and the genesis story of everything with the company?
I think the genesis of me wanting a brand came from being growing up in DC. I guess the creative point where I was like, I'm gonna do it myself was during the pandemic. You know, I looked around during everything that was happening with the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was just looking at the politics of everything, and it really bothered me. And one thing that I try not to get caught up in, and I don't do it like I used to or as much as I used to at all, is people who just kind of become like social media warriors. Not like social justice, but social media work. Like they'll go the whole day and then they'll be tired from like just going Twitter fingers all day. And so I realized in that moment, I was like, man, I'm not going to go outside and I'm not protesting. I'm not going to go and get into arguments with people on social media because I see kind of, I see the bird's eye view of everything that's happening. And so I started writing. That's one thing that I did pick up from college through my journalism major was, you know, I love writing. And so I write every day. And so I started writing out these ideas and these theories. And they were very in-depth and wordy. And, you know, I wasn't going to put out like a dissertation or a paper or anything like that. And so I was like, I'm going to create it some other way. And so I started to create these designs that tells these stories. And I was like, what if I just put this on a t-shirt? Like this idea of like, my ideas that, what if I just put this on clothing without being explicit of what side I'm trying to pick? And so I came across the word Shaytan because I started reading the Quran at the time. And Shaytan just, it's a Islamic word that means the devil. And so I started to see Shaytans in every aspect of things that were happening within society, politically, media-wise. And so I started to come up with these designs about it. And yeah, I just put it on a t-shirt. And the first t-shirt I released was based around the idea of Idi Amin and Archie Bunker. And I put it on the shirt, and on the back I put "No Shaitan Shall Prosper." I had made 50, and they sold out in like less than a day. And so I was like, "Oh, all right, okay." And so this is great. And so I did that, and then yeah, I started on that journey of just wanting to create my own brands, my own clothing.
Product, man. It's all about product. At the end of the day, trying to get something to move around, like you said, you kind of realized that you had a likeness, right? You had a likeness and you had another point of view, whether it was inspired by that point in history or, I mean, it was inspired by that point in history, but obviously having your outlook on life in general and the space that you're coming from. Because that's interesting coming from DC. You say having a brand is big there. You're right. You talk about all like the homegrown brands, and it's like people absorb it, like people admire it, like that are there. It's not one of those cities where someone starts something and people are kind of like that's not cool. You mistake me if I'm wrong. It seems like people from DC support like DC
Yeah,
like
yeah.
bread things. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, that I just love that. You know what I mean? Just jumping into it, but like even transitioning from that, like t-shirt brand and is one thing. Talk to me about getting into the underwear business.
Well, continuing on that path, that year I had made a personal pledge to myself. I was only going to support as much as I could. I was going to buy as many products that I needed from black owned businesses. And so I was, everything I could get, I would get from a black owned person if I could. Or at least I would go and give them the opportunity to serve me first. And so one thing I couldn't find was black owned underwear. A lot of them were very, I felt very pandering. They were like kente cloth underwear and like afros. And I was just like, bro, like that's corny. Like I feel you, but like, man, like it ain't gotta be like that. Like you can still make quality products and it be owned by a black person. Like it doesn't have to be like black power everything. Um, and so I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna start. I was like, I should start my own underwear brand. And so I got the idea because I would go and Google, like, if I needed to order new underwear, I would always Google, like, new black underwear. And so I was like, what if I just start a underwear company called Black Underwear and kind of master brand it sort of like Band-Aid or like Coca-Cola, like people call sodas colas because of Coca-Cola. People call bandages Band-Aids because of Band-Aid. And so I was like, what if I just sell black underwear? And so I got the domain. My friends was like, you won't get the domain. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go see. I looked, the domain was for sale. It was like $2,000. So I got the domain. I got the idea, but then I was like, I don't want to just go out and sell. I don't want to just go out and sell another product. I don't want it to end up like just in the ocean somewhere or somebody bought it because it panders to them. I don't want nobody just to simply buy it because it's black owned. I want them to buy it because it's a quality product and it just happens to be owned by a black person. And so one day I was driving around and I had my phone on my lap and I was like, oh, this can't be good for you. Like just thinking about it. And then I went home, I did some research and it's really not good for you. It's EMF radiation. And so I was like, man, I think the next frontier of clothing in general is going to be protection. Because we can't slow down technology. They're going to continue to build towers and access to internet. They're going to be more.
You see it with tactical
Yeah, tactical
vests. You
vests.
see
You're going to
everything
have more
looking
people
more
working from home. You're going to have all these more interactions with technology. So the best we can do is prepare ourselves for it. And so with the black underwear, not only are they comfortable, they're breathable. They're always going to be black to protect you from being a man, which is we are gross sometimes because we just happen to be sweaty hairy people. But also the next frontier is going to be protection as we continue to build out and research and develop the materials.
Man, that's amazing. So like take like, 'cause, like, to put some underwear together, that's not some simple product development when you start talking about protection and EMF and sourcing all those different products. So where did the confidence come from to act on the inspiration and idea and like actually build it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm an ideas guy. I have ideas, and there's ones where I go down the path. I'm like, all right, I have to be able to do like the first 25, 30% kind of. I got to be able to see a little bit so I can just press the gas and then hopefully end up on some type of lily pad to the next one, right? Underwear. I was just like, man, where do you start?
Yeah, what's the Jay-Z line? Know where the cop? No, who in the F knows how to be? It's like, yo, bro, like it's the same. I'll say one thing about my life that's the same. I don't know how hard it is because I have no other point of reference. I didn't know how hard it was to get into Penn State because I had no point of reference. I didn't know how cool it was to get into Wilhelmina because I had no point of reference. And so the same thing with underwear. Like I didn't know. Like I ordered these T-shirts. I went online. I ordered. I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna put some stuff on a shirt and I'm gonna sell it. The same thing with underwear. I was just like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna go start an underwear brand. Luckily for me, with that one, I did have a contact who previously had dipped their toe into starting an underwear company, and they never followed through. And so I asked them, like, hey, whatever happened to the underwear brand? And so they put me in contact with their manufacturer, and the manufacturer sends me. So when you get in contact with a manufacturer and you tell them your idea, the manufacturer usually produces products that are similar to what you want. And so I went through the whole catalog of all the underwear, and I said, I like this, I like this. I looked at the materials. They send you samples. You look at the samples. You try them on. You say, like, all right, cool. Like, some people just go and get a generic sample and just put their label on it. For me, again, being a model and just looking at clothing brands for growing up you have dozens of clothing brands in DC, but only a few stand out because of quality. Like we know the difference between somebody just putting something on a T-shirt, not changing the label, between someone who takes the time to put their name on their label, who picks out great shirts and not just gilding shirts. Like we see the difference. And so the same thing with underwear. I was like, I don't want no one to feel pressured into buying my product because they want to support a black man or they want to support James. I want them to be proud and be like, yo, like this is the best I've ever worn. And so, yeah, so I got all these samples. I looked at the material. One of the samples was modal. And I looked at the modal and I was like, all right, cool. They're a little too short. I was like, can we make them longer? And I modified them after compression shorts that we would wear for football. I wanted them to be longer. I wanted them to fit like you can play ball in them. And that was the starting point for me.
That's super tight because like when you think about your journey, right? You talk about going to the West Virginia's, Glenville State, Penn State, and all these different situations that happen. You don't really have context when it does happen, and so you kind of walk into it. Do you ever now walk into like a difficult situation, kind of look back on these things like, man, I went through all that. Like, I'll figure this out. Like the confidence from there, because I know for me, like whether it was like transitioning to corporate America and I got to give a SWOT analysis on a new market to like senior level executives, I used to always be like track back, like I used to cover people one-on-one in front of 100,000. Like nothing's like, this ain't got nothing on that. Like what are they going to say? Like, and I would like kind of calm me down or just to go on that path of whether it's building the skills or going through whatever embarrassment it is, right? Like I'm sure when you started pitching it to people, there's a learning curve with everything. And I don't know. I know sometimes people get embarrassed about being embarrassed. So do you reflect on that?
Yeah. I guess because everything, so football is way different from modeling. Modeling is a little different from branding your clothes. Branding your clothes are a little different from retail. Retail is a little different from like acting. But all those things can help each other in some way. So my acting classes that I took that I haven't taken in years helped me pitch my ideas to people because I knew how to cast for modeling jobs. And so you connect all these things and they all come together and you don't even know why you're able to be confident in front of people. And it's because you did all these other things that led you to this point. And so there are points in time where I feel uncomfortable in situations, but it's because I can't connect it to anything I already did because nothing I really do is linear. Like I'm not I don't have like corporate. I'm not like hopping from company to company. I'm hopping from literally different industry to different industries. And so when I hop into these different industries, I don't look at it as difficult because I have that Forrest Gump mentality. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to go do it. So maybe sometimes within that industry, if I don't know the language, then that's when I get uncomfortable, where I can't connect those skills. So, for example, right now we're trying to put our clothes up on our underwear up on Amazon, and I feel very uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable, but I'm kind of just waiting for guidance on that because I understand there's a certain level of knowledge that you need to know. That's not really difficult, but it's just like if you don't know, you don't know, and you don't want to just continue to push this forward because I know at this point this will cost me.
Yeah, yeah. You start trying to make sure those margins are straight. Make sure you're not burning too. Your burn rate's not too crazy. So you talk about just being, like a founding person of a pretty much a retail situation, e-commerce. What's the biggest misconception about like starting your own brand or company that you would share with people? Just kind
All
of
right.
looking to jump into
So I guess three things.
waters.
So one thing is it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. There's so many resources out there. And you can start your own brand just by Google University and YouTube College. Like it's really not that hard. But number two, it's really expensive. Like it's simple. These things are simple and they're simple, but it still takes time. And so unless you catch like lightning in a bottle and you're able to market it, get some free marketing from somebody who just kind of kicks it off, then it's going to cost you and it's going to take some time. But it's not like absurdly out of range. It's just about how long, how much time, how much patience are you willing to put in to help this thing become what you want it to become. Luckily for me, I don't have to hire models because I can model it myself, and I have photographer friends. But those little things can cost you to do that for a product, and there. Don't be afraid to kind of put your idea out there on the marketplace. Um, of
Yeah,
course, there are hundreds of men's underwear brands. Like I completely understand that, and I see that now. But it's like cool. Like there's space for me too. There's space for There's space for your idea. One thing I always, even with my marketing, I would talk to people and they'd be like, "All right, cool. Do you kind of want to talk down on other brands?" I was like, "No. Like I don't want to make anyone
right.
feel bad about buying another person's brand because there are a lot of great brands out there. And if you find one that works for you, then man, stick to it. And I hope it helps you do what you need to do in life. But, there's room and there's customers and there's space for me to create and there's space for everyone else to create as well.
That's true. That's real, man. It's like they say it takes 5 years to build one, so it's just like staying on that path, and you have to kind of believe in like your authentically curated brand and like where it's coming from to kind of put that effort and pushing those things out there. So when you talk about that, because I think it's big when you talk about brands, just college brands, guys talking about their NIL and their personal likeness, like that is your brand. You talk about dual lane brand and how you perform on the field, how you perform off the field, and like pushing that. And that's like with consistency and kind of putting yourself out there to an extent because there's a space for you, right? Like the same way he's talking about a brand with his clothes is kind of off of what you do, right, Matt? Because you're doing black underwear, but you're also a say the word, what's
Wilhelmina.
the Wilhelmina model, right? Like my mouth, I get messed up, but like also a top tier model. So it's like also in that ecosystem where he's like kind of having a network, whether it's photographers, people that work like editors, other model friends that can like model his things and different things like that. To where it's like he's building a product within his ecosystem. That's what we talk about with Lockdown U, right? Like trying to get that product to the players within that ecosystem so that there's monetization. So we're all about capitalizing on just this football process. Right now, we started at the beginning in DC. Now we're all the way in Miami talking about underwear because we don't know which way the path, might go to success. But, for aspiring players, wanting to follow your path, like that entrepreneurial path, what would be some of the traits or ideal personality that you would kind of, recommend to someone if they wanted to follow your path?
You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. I think that has led to a lot of pain points because I don't know how to be fake. I mean, not fake, but I don't know how to put a mask on and be comfortable with it. And so that has led me to not being in a lot of spaces, but it's also led me to be comfortable in the spaces that I find myself in. And so just be honest, be authentic with your interactions, with your relationships. If you want to wear a red beanie everywhere you go, bro, wear it. Like somebody's gonna think it's cool, somebody's gonna think it's whack, but if it makes you feel good, like bro, wear it because everything is made up. Like all the rules are made up. So you might as well be yourself because if you find yourself trying to be somebody else, eventually you're going to get your car pulled and somebody's going to call you out on being inauthentic.
Again, he's like hitting on some great points because he's talking about like, following that entrepreneurial path. He's like in modeling and things of that nature. But we talk about that NIL space. Like it's the same thing about being authentic to yourself. Don't put yourself out there in a way that you really aren't. And like, if it doesn't match up with stuff on the field, man, that's not sustainable and things of that nature. So for players that maybe want to get into acting and modeling, because, when we were coming up, I don't think a player would would actually say it, but now with TikTok, Instagram, cats want to be models. Like, I don't care what anybody say. Like cats want to, it's not give some games to some players if they wanted to be a model or get into acting after their career, what they could do right now to kind of leverage their football career.
The best thing is that they're, especially in the modeling landscape now, is that you just need to look healthy. These brands are trying to portray healthy looking people. So whether you're a wide receiver who is slender and 6'4" and like cut up, or you're like a D tackle, like Spice is thriving and Spice has brands because he's authentic and he looks healthy. Like I'm in the space that I am because I live a healthy lifestyle and like, I still run, I still work out. I look healthy. And so that is one thing. Just make sure you continue to stay healthy. Two, figure out what kind of model you would like to be. I remember, look at it like sports. Like, what kind of receiver are you? You know if you're Tyreek Hill or if you're Mike Evans. Like, if you're a possession guy or a speed guy. Like, know your lane and don't be ashamed of your lane. Like, I remember one of my first jobs. I was like 27, and they made me do big and tall, and I was like, bro, I'm not fat. Like, but then you realize, like, all right, cool. There's a lane for this. Like, now they have big and tall models. And then I remember another job where they had me be a dad for the first time, and I wasn't a dad yet. And I remember not tripping because I saw the pay, but I remember other models were like, well, I'm not a dad. Like, I'm not a parent. It's just like, bro, just play it. Like, it's fine. But then I found that lane where I'm going to be a dad on camera for the next 20 years. And then eventually after that, I'll be a granddad on camera, and I'm straight with that. Like, I'm cool. Like, it's fine. It's completely fine. Yeah. Know your lane, because if not, you're going to find yourself doing weird stuff to stay in that space. And you don't want to be a burnt out, what is equivalent of like a burnt out rapper still talking about stuff that people know you're not really doing when you should just be talking about art. And
riches in the niches, right? That's what they say, riches in the niches. You find it, you kind of lean into your strength, and like That's what it is. And there's an art to that, right? Because there's a level of, we had our last guest, there's a level of knowing yourself to know where you kind of fall into. It seems like everything like that you're kind of have that whimsical outlook on life. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying this. I'm just going to do it. We're going to figure it out. There's a level of faith and confidence that comes with that I think is very inspiring, regardless. And you can show it through the different pivots that you made throughout your life and like to where you are now, a successful model with brands and all those different things popping up in Miami. But where do you see Black in 10 years from now?
I believe we have the potential, and we have the as long as we continue to just be patient, we could be one of the leaders in the industry of what they call connected textiles. If you think about now, whenever you walk into, like whenever I come into my house, whenever I get in reach of my Wi-Fi, my phone automatically goes into certain settings. You have your watch is connected to your phone's connected to your laptop's connected to your computer. Your laptop's connected to your TV. And so now you're going to have where your clothes are connected to each other. They're going to be able to communicate to your phone. They're going to be able to communicate to other people. And so in the future, I see Black underwear being able to let you know that the radiation levels in your environment are too high and you should probably move out of it. Your underwear are going to be able to tell you when you're dehydrated, make sure you drink some water. They're going to tell you like, hey, are you hot? Maybe you should need to go cool off somewhere. And so I see Black underwear being one of the leaders in that industry, and helping us give the resources to do my ultimate goal, which is to build Blacktown. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Man, you just kind of jumped into another a can of worms there, but like even with the underwear, all those different benefits, right? Like you just talk about just the safety aspect. Anybody get a chance, there'll be the website link will be in the show notes, but order a pair because you will not be disappointed, and I guarantee you will come back and support, and well, not even support, but you'll want some more Black underwear. But with that being said, talk to me about Blacktown. You said the whole purpose of this is to build Blacktown. What is Blacktown?
Well, Blacktown is a term I attribute to Dr. Claude Anderson, but it's essentially an ecosystem, a neighborhood, a city, a town where the economy is insulated. We continuously reinforce the greatness of Native Black Americans, and when I say Native Black, it's not to exclude anyone. It's just that if you're second generation Nigerian, then you have a culture to pull from. If you're second generation or third generation, fourth generation, if you know which generation you are, you have a culture to pull from that native country, whether you're Brazilian, whether you're Colombian, any other thing. You have dance you can pull from, you have music you can pull from, you have food you can pull from, you have holidays, you have all these things you can pull from. But when it comes to Native Blacks in this country, we don't have much to pull from except for America. And so we're kind of all just making it up as we go. But a lot of times, a lot of our culture is demonized or told that it's not cool or it's not appropriate because we're always going to be influenced by the dominant society that brought us here or who has reigned here in this country. And so Blacktown is a city that reinforces we are great. We are great at a lot of things. Our culture it's good. Like it's nothing bad about wearing a do-rag on the street if you want to. There's nothing wrong with wearing sweatsuits all day. If that's cool, bro. Like there's nothing wrong with fried chicken and watermelon. It's great. Like don't be ashamed of these things. And not saying that fried chicken is like the greatest thing, but like it shouldn't be like a stereotype to like eat fried chicken. Like you don't have to hide who you are because it's going to be constantly reinforced within this society and this ecosystem of Blacktown. So any city, any town where you go to, whether it's Chinatown, a Jewish district, Koreatown, Little Haiti, Little Mexico, you're always going to have The schools are going to reinforce the greatness of that culture. The churches or the religious institutions are, the restaurants, the parks, everything is just going to constantly reinforce the greatness of those people. And it doesn't mean that they are superior to anything. It's just letting the people who are of that culture let you know that you are great the way you are. And so in a town like Blacktown, people are going to come to Blacktown to buy stuff, but the resources and the money stays within the situation.
Love it. I absolutely love it, man. That kind of takes a little bit of a branch into kind of some of the projects that I'm working on with BPX and BPM and just the Black Progress Executive Network. And we just like you talk about that incubation of making sure the money's flowing in the right area, or just like where executives are getting jobs and opportunities to move up in different things. And it kind of starts with like an ecosystem of kind of sharing knowledge, sharing goods, sharing opportunities, and kind of making that impactful thing, right? Where it's just not, whether it's a program or this training, it's like, no, make a true impact, making a true ecosystem where money's flowing a different type of way. People are moving up and there's actual progress being made. So you guys check that out too with Black Progress Matters and the Black Progress Executive Network. And in the future, Blacktown. Let's get it. You know what I mean? So, man, just thank you for jumping on. I will wrap that up. Just thanks to James McDonald for coming on to the Blueprint to Success interview series, man. Just go through, man, just going through the process, understanding what a can-do attitude, man. He kind of refers to it as having a Forrest Gump type attitude, which I really enjoy because it's going in with curiosity, right? Curiosity and like a belief in what you can do and just kind of doing it, having an idea and doing it. Sometimes you do have to pivot and believe in yourself that you can pivot the way that you want to. So seeing the success now transitioning to becoming an elite model and starting successful brands and all these different things and all the things that he's learned on throughout the journey and the different situations that he's been in, just kind of taking those and putting that and using them for your own blueprint when it comes up, right? If you identify with this type of personality, or just if you want to become a model when you're done playing football, or start your own brand, or have an idea for something, there's something that you can definitely pull from it. So when you guys get a chance, like and subscribe, check out the Recruiting and Football Biz Masterclass so you just are making informed decisions going through this process. And that's it, man. Thanks again, Mac.
Amen.
Peace.